Mm. Take a look at this. This is the cleanest beach, one of the cleanest beach in Dar es Salaam.
Hello and welcome to another day in paradise, and welcome to another edition of the Unapologetic Negrobian. In today's video, since I made that Renae X video, I have had a plethora of emails that have come in from people who have also had similar experiences when staying inside the Exodus house in Tanzania. And when I take a look at some of these stories suggest that Renae X is much, much worse than what I had originally imagined. Stories of bullying, harassment and theft, to the point in which the Tanzanian authorities had arrested Renae X. So what was she arrested for? What are all these stories that have now come out? Well, we're going to try and go through these stories, and we're going to try and find out whether there was any truth to these stories. But first, I'm going to ask you to please like, subscribe, share, click the bell notification, and please consider supporting the channel on our Patreon, link in the description. We'll also ask you to please follow the Oversight Risk Management channel if you want any information on how to stay safe when investing in Africa. Now, if you've taken a look at the Exodus house, it is clear it is a pretty large facility, and much too large for one person to take care of. So, of course, Renae X has a housekeeper. She always has a housekeeper. But she's only been there for 13 months. And she's had, and we're going to count them, she's had 5 housekeepers. She goes through housekeepers like a termite through wood. So clearly there is something up with this Exodus house, or how it's being run, because the house is beautiful. It's in a beautiful location. The beach is just a stone throw away. So what exactly is it? Why are these housekeepers running away as soon as they've stayed there a few weeks? Now it's time for me to tell you about the first story from one of Renae X's ex-housekeepers. An African-American woman, I cannot name her, an African-American woman had gone to work for Renae and enjoyed it for the first week. But then Renae started bullying her and started harassing her. Now this became worse and worse, to the point in which this African-American woman had to leave the Exodus house just for a break. So that's what she did. She left Exodus house when it was time for her to renew her visa. She left, went back to the United States, and of course she left all of her belongings behind inside the house, the Exodus house, inside one of the apartments in which she was staying in. And when this lady returned from the United States of America, she went inside her room and realized that the lock had been broken, forced open. And when she went through her apartment, she realized that there were a number of items that were missing from her room. She confronted Renae X, and Renae X went ballistic on her. Renae X was furious because this lady had accused her of breaking into her apartment. But why was that the case? Because Renae X had stolen out of that apartment a large fridge freezer. A large fridge freezer that she was using downstairs. So the housekeeper had no choice other than to call the Tanzanian authorities. And they are not like the Gambian authorities. They came straight to the Exodus house and immediately arrested her. So that is just one story from one housekeeper, one former housekeeper. I'm going to tell you a story of another housekeeper, the next housekeeper to go to work at the Exodus house. So this housekeeper, who was also an African-American woman, had the same problem as the other housekeeper. She had to go and renew her visa. So she had to go away from her apartment. This housekeeper was told to leave her keys behind. The housekeeper refused and said, hey, for what reason would she need to leave her keys behind? Now I know you get some hotels that will ask you to leave the keys behind if you are staying there. This is different, okay? This woman was working there. There is no need for somebody to go inside her apartment. Henceforth, there was no need to keep the key. She had to keep it herself so she could keep her belongings safe. Clearly, everybody who was working at the Exodus house knew what Renae X was like and knew as soon as she had that key that she would be going inside that apartment to help herself to whatever was in there. The housekeeper refused and left the apartment with the key and the apartment locked with her belongings safe inside. Once she returned to Tanzania, she went inside the apartment, she cleaned out all of her stuff and she walked away from the apartment and her job and the Exodus house. Now you may be asking why? Why would she just go in and start rummaging around this particular housekeeper's belongings? Well, this particular housekeeper had started a relationship. Now, this man was previously in a relationship with Renae X. And clearly, Renae X had not gotten over this man. So when she heard that this African-American housekeeper had started a relationship with this man, clearly she blew her top. Once the housekeeper had returned to Tanzania, she quit her job and moved in with this particular man, the love interest of Renae X. And of course, Renae X was absolutely furious about this and went on YouTube to give a 2-hour rant. The video that we all have seen, the video that I showed you in the last video. So now you all know it has nothing to do with African Americans. She's blaming all African Americans because she lost a man. It was all about a gentleman. That was it. It had nothing to do with how bad African Americans are. After this, she got herself a local housekeeper. It was not a diasporan, it was a local housekeeper. And one of the visitors who came to the Exodus house had a falling out with Renae X. They had a big argument, and another visitor overheard one of the housekeepers. The housekeeper was in tears, and she said, and I quote, "Oh no, she's gonna give us all hell because of this." Now this clearly is an indication that Renae X is a nasty piece of work. Now clearly these are all stories. There's no factual evidence for me to suggest that she is a nasty piece of work. But what I'm going to show you now is absolute evidence that she is absolutely not a good person, that there is something sinister inside her, something which is making her do really nasty things. I honestly feel sorry for her daughter. What I'm going to show you next is Renae X doing something which is absolute proof that she clearly isn't a nice person. Take a look at this.
Right? So for those of you who, are running your mouth and have all different kinds of nasty things to say, who are sitting there having your tea and never had to get off your ass and do a damn thing. You never had to go into work for anything. You live, at the hands of, somebody else. You don't know how to work for yourself. You don't know how to invest in yourself. You don't know how to put any energy into your business or your goals or your visions. But you can sit there behind your computer and talk shit to me about what you think. And try to malign and negate and neglect everything that you see here without ever having had to do any kind of work. So for you, I say a curse from the ancestors upon you, okay? A curse from the ancestors to you and all your generation upon you. You don't get to sit and malign me making an investment into my people. This is about my people, right?
So you heard it for yourself. A generational curse on all those people who had any negative thoughts or anything negative to say about her or her business. How pathetic is that? Now, most of us know that she doesn't have the power to give these types of curses. But in the real world, where you have people who are gullible, who will believe in that type of thing, you will have people who are going to feel threatened by what she just said. So guys, if that isn't proof in the pudding that she is not a good person, then I don't know what is. I mean, who would put a generational curse on someone simply because they don't think positive about you? Perhaps They don't think positive about you because you're not a positive person. Perhaps they say negative things about you because you are a negative person. Perhaps they say negative things about you because you are not a good person, genuinely. There are a lot of people who don't accept responsibility for themselves, and I think Renae X is one of them. Like I said in my last video, if you are planning on going there, if you are planning on staying there, I would strongly suggest you change your plans and go elsewhere. If not, then I would strongly suggest you have a backup plan, because it seems as though this woman has the power to change her mind on a whim, and she will do this, and she will ask you for things, and she will tell you to do things which are absolutely unreasonable. She will also act like a spoilt brat at times if things don't go her way. This is not the way you run a professional organization. It's not the way you run a professional household. It's not the way you are supposed to take care of people who are relying on you to build a peaceful environment because they've just left the United States of America. If you had a problem with all African Americans in the first place, then what you should have done is you shouldn't have opened up this household. So if you've heard this, you've been warned. So if anybody else has had any other experiences with Renae X at the Exodus House, please contact me at tuntalks@gmail.com. That is tuntalks@gmail.com. It'd be really good to hear your experiences. And now over to you. What do you think about her being arrested by Tanzanian authorities? Clearly, there is something awry in the Exodus House. Perhaps it's not a good place for anybody, yet alone African Americans. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So that's all I have time for today. I'd like to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'd like to give an extra special thank you to my Patreons, and I will see you in the next one. Until the next time, please think twice. Tour a bit.